I can only suppose how easy it is to fall into a vicious cycle when you're trying to create wrestling television, to fall into certain pitfalls or just certain patterns. And one of those patterns for TNA anyways is it seems like they always find a way to put Bully Ray and or Hulk Hogan in the opening segment. I mean, come on. Can we occasionally mix this up a little bit where not only does it not have to be those guys, or if they are going to appear, maybe it's something that isn't a 10 or 15 minute promo segment? I'm just saying.
Just like with Impact Wrestling, brother. OTR is central, is Hulk Hogan territory, dude. And like Bully Ray found out, you don't want to mess with Hulkamania, brother. It's still to this day the strongest force in the universe, brother. And I had to come out and open this show, brother. It's how it should be every week, dude. Because that's where the ratings are, brother. And let me tell you something. That no good Bully Ray and his whole little group of minions, the Aces and Eights, dude. Two things they need to know. Number one, nobody's gonna make eyes at my daughter but me, brother. And number two, you better get ready, Bully Ray. I know I talked about that BFG series and said there's gonna be 12 members revealed next week, brother. But there's actually a lucky number 13, dude. But that's not gonna be revealed until right before Bound for Glory, brother. So you just keep that belt all shine nice and pretty. Because the bottom line is, dude, what you're gonna do when Hulkamania comes at you at Bound for Glory and wins the TNA World Championship, brother, oh, brother.
There can only be one Hulkster, brother. You know, with that announcement by the Hulkster that next week we're going to get the revelation of who the 12 people are in the BFG series. I guess for some reason they decided to sandwich in a couple of BFG series qualifying matches on the show. Just a couple? I don't know, I guess I was missing something. You had Hernandez beat Chavo. The tag team partners being paired against each other. Maybe this will mean, thankfully, the splitting up of the tag team. I don't have a problem with Chavo having a spot. I'm just glad that he did the job here to Hernandez. And, you know, even if they found a way to get Chavo put on TV, even if they put him in the X division and used him as a guy that was a stepping stone for others to move up, I'm okay with that. As far as Samoa Joe squashing Robbie E, that's exactly what the fuck should happen. That's what should happen. And that's good shit right there. Samoa Joe squashing the shit out of that jobber. Period. One thing that keeps me going as a wrestling fan and keeps me watching the product, both WWE and TNA at least, is curiosity. I'll get enough things that will make me curious to see, usually, how they're going to play out, either positively and or negatively. And when I look at TNA, one example of this curiosity for me is how they're going to do this Joseph Park and Abyss angle and how they're going to weave both of those characters in, both individually and collectively, going against the Aces and Eights. I don't give a shit about the Aces and Eights. I think it's the worst faction in human existence, frankly. But I am curious to see how they weave in Joseph Park and they weave in Abyss, which is ironic because I really don't like the Abyss character at all. But I really, really like the Joseph Park character. I like when things are done in a subtle manner. Doesn't mean that things always have to be booked in a subtle manner, but I think it's better when they are. When you slowly go towards something and you don't just rush right in all of a sudden, like when WWE this year just turned Ryback heel all the fucking sudden. It's like, did you have to turn him heel that suddenly? Could we have done something to maybe precipitate this? Maybe something to lead up to this? Give us some type of slow developing angle before the turn actually happened? What I'm referencing here is Mickie James and her match against Taylor Hendricks and her whole kind of character shift, the slow transition to being a heel bitch. You know, heel bitch Mickie is very sexy. You boys know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure there were several of you that are going to be watching this video that when you saw Mickie James wrestling Taylor Hendricks, you wanted to hit the old spank bank. That's okay. And that's okay. It's okay to do that. But as I watched this, it was like, it's good to see Taylor Hendricks. And I like the way they're doing Mickie James. She's like so over the top nice that she's being bitchy. It was like what WWE was trying to do with Eve Torres, except TNA is probably going to get it more right because they book women's wrestlers far better than the WWE does, period. Not even up for discussion or debate. So this is something that's got me curious. This slow turn of Mickie James into a full-fledged bitch heel. I want to see how this turns out. So again, curiosity, that's what keeps me coming back, even if a lot of the other product is crap.
Ladies and gentlemen, you had to know that the best match of the night was going to be the six-man tag because it figured you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Smokey, stop sneezing.
Ladies and gentlemen. You had to know the match of the night on Impact had to be the 6-man tag. Why? Because it had James Storm, motherfucker. That's why, daddy. The bottom line is James Storm and Gunner are going to go on to become the most dominant tag team in TNA Impact Wrestling history. You best believe that, daddy. But my name ain't Dick Storm. Oh, wait, my name is Dick Storm. Yeah, shot some truth out of my one-eyed monster right in your face, if you will, daddy. That's right. Now, I gotta address something else here really quickly. Last week, I brought up that you should name this tag team in the comments section down below. And Dickie Storm sat there and got on the old interwebs, and I read through some of your names, and they sucked. This is supposed to be James Storm and Gunner. The greatest thing since Mother Humping sliced bread, daddy. You best believe that, Jack. And some of the names you guys suggested were not worthy of such a great tag team. So I'm going to give you a second chance because I'm the Dick Storm, baby. And I'm a man of, by, and for the people. So one more time, down in them comments, you let old Dick Storm know what you think the new tag team name for James Storm and Gunner should be. Get creative, have some fun with it, and make sure it's a name worthy of the tag team champions. Ride the Dick Storm, baby. Woo!
You don't even get Smokey looking at the camera. How the fuck Chris Sabin with no damn ACLs gonna sit there and be able to beat a world-class wrestler, athlete, and dancer like Kenny King? I know what I smell. I smell some cheeseburger in my paws, but I also smell a racist conspiracy spearheaded by Chris Sabin nuthuggers like Food Killer and TNA Impact Wrestling. Yeah, if you believe that this is a racist conspiracy, you say hashtag justice for King down below. You damn right.
As far as the main event match, Bully Ray versus Jeff Hardy, this ladder hammer match, whatever the fuck you want to call it, was I the only one that was kind of like, not really that into it? I just was. Just was not that into it. I don't want to see Bully Ray versus Jeff Hardy. And maybe this is just me being a little bit of a punk here, but, I just don't want to see it. Whether people within TNA circles want to admit it or not, their product is kind of flailing and failing right now. It is. It just flat out is. Going live didn't really help ratings. Getting out of the impact zone really hasn't helped ratings. Changing time slots, going back to 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday nights, that hasn't helped ratings. This Aces and Eights storyline that has carried on for a freaking year now, sure as hell, hasn't helped ratings. Now, are ratings the only measure of a wrestling company's success? No, not necessarily. You could have great ratings and be losing out your ass. See WCW in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the bottom line is when you're a wrestling company that is so geared and so focused towards ratings, and you can clearly see it in TNA's product. And if anybody in TNA tries to tell you otherwise, they are full of shit. Because it's in the way they present the product. It's the way they feature the product. It's the way they book storylines. It's the way they present it to us, the audience. That clearly tells you their most important thing as a company still is getting that rating the next day and just hoping it's going to be good. And as Paul Heyman said before, you're never going to get anywhere doing that. You're just not. But for a company that puts so many eggs into the ratings basket to see their ratings continue to decline, that's got to be very troubling. And it's time that people associated with TNA, real hardcore TNA fans, recognize that there is a problem. Everything that's going on right now, whether you want to admit it or not, is contributing to the problem. That especially includes things like the Aces and Eights storyline. Wake up, people! Seriously. So on to the heart of the matter. Dixie back on Twitter, 2 weeks ago, was hyping this big, huge free agent signing. And you had to know, because it's Impact Wrestling, because it's TNA, because it's a company run by Dixie Carter, God bless them, but you knew this was going to be some dumb shit. Or it was going to be some shit out of deep, deep roving right field. You just knew that, didn't you? You knew deep down that this wasn't the type of big free agent signing that you were maybe thinking or hoping that it was going to be. So we get the announcement that Rampage Jackson has been signed by Impact Wrestling, but really as part of that whole Viacom family, in particular in coordination in conjunction with Bellator. And you have a lot of people talking about this in terms of a positive way of looking at it as, if you're looking at this just from a wrestling standpoint, then you're already missing the point. No, I get it. I understand that this was done in part to help increase mainstream exposure of Impact Wrestling, Bellator, etc. I get that. And from that standpoint, it at least was a little bit successful. But again, it didn't exactly do all that well in the ratings. And if you're going to say, well, the ratings, they were going up against the NBA Finals, it doesn't matter. It just didn't do that well, period. It's time to stop making excuses. Because there are plenty of people that watch wrestling that don't give a shit about basketball or other sports in general, that if they cared about your product would watch regardless of what else you're going up against on a weekly basis. So you're bringing Rampage Jackson in. Now, I'm supposed to be all excited about this, but correct me if I'm wrong. When in the fuck was the last time we saw King Mo on Impact Wrestling? Wasn't it back at Bound for Glory? What the hell was the big point of pumping this guy down our throats and up our asses like he was a big deal if we weren't going to see him for 8 months? And even when we did see him, we barely saw him, and it was in an insignificant matter. Why would you waste TV time on a guy like King Mo only to not show him again for 8 freaking months? Why? It's because it's time people open their brains up and they think a little bit. It's because Impact Wrestling is being used by the parent company to launch off other things, such as help Bellator. All the times they've had Bellator people on there, Now you bring King Mo in, he's a Bellator fighter, You would think at some point people would put 2 and 2 together. The bottom line is the addition of Rampage Jackson, first and foremost, was to help Bellator, not help Impact Wrestling. Period. That's all this is being done for. And to get a little extra mainstream press along the way. So, if you're expecting impact from Rampage Jackson, pun intended, for Impact Wrestling, there's not going to be any real long-term impact. Because how much is he actually going to be a wrestler? I guarantee he's going to be more of a presence on Bellator and other Viacom-related things than he's going to be for Impact Wrestling. And that's sad. Now, as far as the way they did this debut, they put him in the 1-hour main event spot. Right spot to put him in my opinion. Building towards it. You gave him a little bit of time, but you really didn't give him that much time with him and Borash. I thought they should have done a better job of giving us more time. Unless they're already trying to tell us that you're not going to get a whole lot of Rampage, so don't get too excited about this. But then you get Kurt Angle coming out. The one really good thing about this Rampage Jackson debut, the one really good thing was how Kurt Angle conducted and carried himself. This is a wrestling guy trying to protect his turf from an MMA guy, and his promo was spot on money. This had people actually thinking that they wanted to see Kurt Angle versus Rampage Jackson. Now I understand, whether intentional or not, this was a seed that TNA had planted in the audience's mind. And in that case, it did a great job because Kurt Angle was phenomenal. Phenomenal on the mic. Absolutely. It even has me a little curious to see what's going to happen with Rampage Jackson and TNA, the little bit that he's actually going to be working with the company. It's got me curious to see what could happen maybe at Bound for Glory or down the road with Rampage Jackson, Kurt Angle kind of hybrid type of match. So it's that curiosity again, that curiosity that keeps coming and bringing me back in and keeps me interested and keeps me watching. So there are a few things in Impact right now that have me curious. However, I'm also not delusional. I don't expect great things for Rampage Jackson because we should have already learned this lesson from King Mo. Just remember that. Wasn't that bad of a show this week. Starting next week when the BFG series kind of sort of really gets underway, it's going to probably ramp up my interest a little bit more in the Impact product. I hope so anyways.